Okay, good afternoon to everyone. For this video po, we will just have a short discussion on the topic professional environment of cost management. Within this video, we will be discussing first, the organizational structure and the management accountant. Second, we will have a detailed discussion about the chief financial officer. We will differentiate controllership and treasurership. We will also discuss ethical standards with respect to management accountant, as well as identify and enumerate international certifications that is available to our management accountants. So first thing is, in terms of organizational structure, if we're going to the structure itself or the relationship in terms of reporting, let's first identify what are the kinds or types of authority in an organization. First, you have of course, the line authority. Under the line authority, it gives the function the authority to command or to give orders, to command or to give orders to subordinate. Therefore, under the line authority, the flow is basically downward. Okay? The line managers are actually those which are directly responsible in attaining the objectives of the business. So for example, the objective is to make sale. Thus, the sales supervisor is considered to have line authority. On the other hand, when we talk about the staff authority, the function is actually to advise, and thus the flow is laterally or upward. The advice given by the staff manager or staff authority is to support, to give advice, to give services to the line department or to the line managers. Okay? However, meron din tayong tinatawag na functional authority. Under the functional authority naman, you are given the command to give action laterally or downward. However, this right is only specific to a special function or to special procedure. As in the case of our chief accounting officer, so ini-exercise of course niya yung kanyang line authority over dun sa department. Of course, kapag ikaw ay head ng isang department, lagi kang merong line authority considering that you have your subordinates. Okay? But the accounting department itself, is considered to be a staff position, staff authority. Okay, so it provides services and provides support and advices to other line departments. However, the case of accounting department is that sometimes the president or the accounting system is being communicated or being reported by the controller or by the accounting officer to the president, and the president now will communicate such through a manual of instructions. Okay, but in practice, the controller had been delegated by the top line management in order to direct the line people on how to apply the procedures, thus giving the controller or the accounting department the functional authority. Even if they are staff authority by nature, they are given the right to command laterally or downward, specifically to the function of telling the people within the organization and how to apply the procedures involved in accounting system. Okay, so that's basically the difference between a line authority, the staff authority, and the functional authority. Line authority is mostly downward, staff authority is mostly lateral and upward, and functional authority is a combination of the two, having the right to command and at the same time laterally or downward. In terms of reporting relationship, so these are among the common higher position involved. So we have, of course, our board of directors. So the board of directors are those being elected by the shareholders. Okay, so the board of directors, of course, will assign or will designate a chairman, or which is known as the chief executive officer, which is the highest ranking position in the management. Under the CEO, we have, of course, the COO, which is the chief operating officer, which is involved in directing the day-to-day operation of the organization. Another one is the chief financial officer, which is in charge of the financial or financial operations of the organization. Okay, and under the chief financial officer are the controller and the treasurer. Okay, now the focus of the discussion will be on the chief financial officer. Under the responsibilities of the CFO in various organizations are the controllership, the treasury, the risk management, the taxation, and the internal audit. So in the case of controllership, the main function is actually to provide financial information and to oversee the accounting operation. So basically, controllership is about accounting. Okay, recording transactions, providing financial information reports. On the other hand, when we talk about treasury, from the term itself, it includes the management of cash. And when we say management of cash, we're talking about how are you going to manage your cash and custody of it, which includes banking, which includes how are you going to invest your funds, are you going to invest it in a short-term or a long-term financing. Okay, followed by the risk management. Of course, when you decided to invest your funds, you have to manage the financial risk involved in the investments. Okay, so among the financial risk involved in the investments are, of course, your interest rate and the exchange rates. Aside from that, it's also the function and responsibility of the chief financial officer to know how are you going to minimize your taxes. So which includes tax planning, which includes compliance to tax rules and regulations. And lastly, it's also the function of CFO or responsibilities about the internal audit. Okay, so when we say internal audit, you are actually evaluating certain things. Like, for example, you are evaluating internal controls so that you will make sure that all assets are being safeguarded well. Okay, also you will evaluate the corporate governance. Okay, and then of course an evaluation of the accounting process. The internal audit includes reviewing and analyzing financial and other records, attesting the integrity of the financial reports. So since this is internal audit, this is different from the external, because the internal audit is being done by someone within the organization, while the external audit is independent from the business. Okay. Next topic is about the difference between the controllership and the treasurership. So these are among the two main functions of a chief financial officer. As in the case of companies na medyo malalaki, of course they can afford to have a CFO, they can afford to have a controller and treasurer. Okay, but what we will be talking about here is not the position itself, but the function of being the controller and being the treasurer. Okay, because the title might be different, but we have to know what are the functions of these two. When we talk about controllership, we're basically talking about, as mentioned, planning, taxation, reporting, accounting, and control. Okay, so of course, in the planning stage, controller or the function of controllership is to be involved in planning, like involved in the establishment and the maintaining of plan consistent with the objective of the company. Okay? Of course, yung taxation, alam naman natin yan. Kailangan alam mo yung mga tax rules and the regulations so that the company will be compliant. Whatever is the rules on taxation. Okay? Of course, reporting, dahil nga the controllership is involved in providing financial information, of course, you have to report it. And in order to report, of course, you have to prepare and you make analysis and interpretation of financial reports, which is the product of your of the accounting system. Okay? As mentioned, yung accounting, of course, will involve the design, the establishment, and the maintenance of the general and cost accounting systems at the company levels. Okay, and control, of course, making sure that the performance is in conformance, or the performance of the actual resorts are in conformity with what is being planned. Okay? On the other hand, when we talk about treasurership, so dahil na ito is involved in the management of cash, among the functions are, of course, banking and fund custody. Okay? The function, the purpose or the aim of the treasurer is to manage the wealth of the business. Okay? Making sure na ma-maximize yung wealth ng business. Okay? And that includes custody of fund, of course, credit and collection. Also, how are you going to procure funds in order to support whatever is needed in the plan of the organization, and how are you going to manage the fund? Like in the case nga kanina, where you will be able to identify whether you're going to invest it in short-term or long-term investments. Okay, so treasurership is more on fund management. Controllership is more on reporting whatever is happening in the funds. Okay, next topic is about the ethical standards for management accountants. So, yung ethical standards po ay nahati sa dalawa. The first one is the standards, the ethical standards being followed by the management accountants, and the other one, the second part, is recommendations on how to resolve some ethical conflict and ethical issues. Okay. So, pagdating po sa ethical standards, okay, pagdating po sa ating ethical standards, hinati natin into four, or we have four ethical standards. We have competence, confidentiality, integrity, and objectivity. So, kailan po or paano po tayo magkakaroon ng competence? Of course, the accountant must be competent in what he or she is doing. And in order to get the competence required, of course, you need to have experience. Okay, paano ka makukuha ng experience? Of course, you have to work. Okay? Aside from that, you need to have knowledge. Okay, mag-aral, can be informal schooling. Okay? You need also to have skills. You are considered competent if you have the skills. Okay? In terms of behavior also, okay, so dapat hindi ka basta-basta sumusuko. Hindi ka basta-basta tumitigil lang. Okay, and then of course, you have of course yung performance mo. Dapat okay yung performance mo, and you are directed towards the goal. Okay, so ayun po yung ating competence. Okay, and with respect naman po to confidentiality, yung sinasabi lang dyan, you have to honor the secrecy of the information na nag-gather mo once you are inside the company and even when you go outside the company. Okay, big sabihin, you will not disclose whatever your findings, or you will not disclose whatever you know within the organization. Unless, syempre, the law requires you to disclose it. As in the case kapag ka nagkaroon ng, if you are being commanded by, or you are being summoned by the court to disclose things. But if walang ganon, you are binded by confidentiality, thus you shouldn't be disclosing information. Okay? Especially confidential business information, like the plans of the organization, like the personal information of the people within the organization, the details on the major customers of the organization, and such information that are considered to be confidential to the business. Because this information, kapag ka napunta sa mga competitors, they can use this information against the organization. Okay? Number 3 is integrity. So, tayo as management accountants, kailangan we are honest, we are respectful, we are trustworthy, and we are responsible. Okay? Lastly, in terms of objectivity naman, kailangan when we make judgments, when we make professional judgments, we are not biased. We will base our judgment on facts, not on opinion. Okay? And again, those are the 4 ethical standards for management accountants. Again, to enumerate, we have competence, confidentiality, integrity, and objectivity. And as mentioned kanina, yung ethical standards po for management accountants also includes some guidelines on how to resolve ethical conflict. Okay? Ang sinasabi lang dito, just in case magkaroon ng ethical conflict, how are you going to apply the standards of ethical conduct in cases where you encounter problems? Okay, so first thing is, of course, you have to discuss the courses of actions that you can take. Or first, you have to discuss such problems with your immediate superior. Okay, unless, of course, it appears that your superior is involved. Okay, so in such case, you will be presenting the information to the next higher managerial level. Let us assume that your immediate superior is the chief executive officer. Okay, so syempre, kung CEO na yan, at let us say involved ang CEO mo sa problem na ina-encounter, wala na, siya na yung pinakamataas kasi the highest ranking, right? The highest ranking position. So kapag ganun po yung scenario, you can come up with audit committee. Kaya kung minsan in a corporate governance, ang BOD ay meron talagang grupo involved in the top management at merong grupong involved as audit committee. So that kapag nagkakaroon ng problema in the top management, merong mga conflicts na nare-resolve in the top management, the audit committee will handle it. Okay? If ever hindi pa rin ma-resolve, kahit you talk with audit committee, you can clarify issues by having confidential discussion with an advisor. Okay? If hindi pa rin, you can consult your own attorney for legal obligations and rights. And if talagang na-take mo na into consideration yung mga options na yun, at hindi pa rin na-resolve yung matter, then you can consider resigning from the organization. And kumbaga, disengage yourself. Kasi it's as management accountants, you are supposed not to continue the engagement if there are ethical conflicts. Okay? And then lastly, we have here international certifications available to our management accountant. So you can be a certified management accountant, or a certified public accountant, or a certified internal auditor. And yung functions nila, well, of course, management accountants, we had identified the function already. CPA, we know the function of CPA already. Internal auditor, we know the function of internal auditor. So these are just certifications, given by body organization. As in the case of management accountants, certification in management accounting, so it is given by Institute of Management Accountants. So basically, ayun lang yung covered nung professional environment of cost management. So if you have questions and clarifications, you can just simply comment your questions. Okay, and we will try to answer that again in the next video.